Death of Mark Bemis shocked Greenfield, Massachusetts. He wasn't just any suspect, he had a violent criminal history stretching back decades. Yet on a cold February night, his life ended in a hail of police gunfire after he charged officers with a knife. Was this the only way his story could have ended? Or could his path have been changed years earlier? For some, Bemis was a dangerous repeat offender who finally met the consequences of his actions. For others, he was a troubled man failed by a broken system that offered punishment, but never lasting help. His death set off fierce debates over policing, addiction, and whether anyone really tried to stop the downward spiral before it was too late. Tonight, we break down the chilling final moments, his disturbing past, and the unanswered questions still haunting Greenfield. Was justice truly served, or was this tragedy written long before the first shot was fired? Stick with us to the end, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss the cases we uncover. Who was Mark W. Bemis? Mark W. Bemis's name had been on police radar for years before the violent night that ended his life. A longtime Massachusetts resident, he carried a history of assault, theft, and escalating violent outbursts. Court records revealed multiple charges, from domestic violence reports to disorderly conduct, and a string of drug-related arrests. Though often released with probation, his record painted the picture of a man spiraling further into instability. Police reports described him as erratic, unpredictable, and frequently armed. Neighbors had called 911 multiple times, reporting shouting matches, threats, and even physical altercations. Officers noted Bemis's refusal to comply with court-ordered treatments, his open hostility toward law enforcement, and his chilling statement once made to an officer, "Next time, I won't be the one in cuffs." That next time came in April 2024, when dispatchers received a frantic call from a relative. Bemis was armed, intoxicated, and threatening to end it all. Responding officers rolled bodycams as they approached his home. When officers arrived, they found Bemis pacing outside, visibly intoxicated and clutching a handgun. Commands to drop the weapon were ignored. According to police, he shouted obscenities and aimed the firearm toward the officers. Seconds later, the situation escalated into a deadly police shooting, captured in stark clarity on multiple bodycams. The footage, soon to be released under public records law, shows the tense standoff, the blinding flash of gunfire, and Bemis collapsing to the ground. But was this simply a case of suicide by cop, or was there more behind Bemis's violent end? We'll uncover new revelations, including the exact contents of the bodycam footage, his disturbing final words, and why some investigators believe Bemis may have orchestrated this deadly finale all along. Mark Bemis's criminal record, a trail of violence. Mark W. Bemis wasn't just a troubled man, he was a repeat offender with a long paper trail of run-ins with the law. Court archives in Massachusetts show a pattern of arrests spanning more than 2 decades, most tied to alcohol abuse, violent outbursts, and defiance of authority. Early charges, 2000s. Bemis's first arrests involved disorderly conduct and public intoxication. Police noted his aggressive behavior toward officers even then, once attempting to headbutt an arresting deputy. Escalation, 2010 to 2017. His crimes became more serious. Multiple assault and battery charges were filed after domestic disputes turned violent. Records show restraining orders filed by former partners, one of whom claimed Bemis swore he would never go back to jail alive. Property and drug offenses, 2018 to 2021. Bemis was caught in a string of breaking and entering cases tied to stolen tools and electronics. He was also arrested twice for possession of controlled substances, suggesting possible drug dependence alongside alcoholism. Final years, 2022 to 2023. The most concerning charges were threats with a dangerous weapon. In one case, Bemis reportedly pulled a knife during an argument with a neighbor. In another, he pointed a loaded firearm at relatives during a drunken rage, though he somehow avoided prison after agreeing to a treatment program he never completed. Despite the seriousness of these offenses, Bemis often slipped through the cracks of the system. Short jail stints, probation deals, and court-ordered rehab kept him in circulation. Police reports noted him as a high-risk repeat offender, yet judges continued to issue suspended sentences. Family members later admitted they feared Bemis's violent streak was escalating towards something irreversible. One relative told investigators, "We always worried he'd either kill somebody, or the police would have to kill him." There was never going to be a peaceful ending. And those fears proved chillingly accurate. Next, we'll move to the night of his death, the frantic 911 call, the tense body cam footage, and the chilling words Bemis shouted just seconds before he was fatally shot. The night of Mark Bemis's death. It was just after 10:30 p.m. on July 30, 2023, when dispatchers in Orange, Massachusetts received a frantic 911 call from neighbors. They reported shouting, glass breaking, and a man screaming threats inside a small duplex on Mechanic Street. When officers arrived, they found Mark Bemis in the driveway, shirtless, sweating, and visibly intoxicated, clutching what appeared to be a long kitchen knife. The confrontation quickly escalated. Bodycam footage, what police saw. Released weeks later, the body-worn camera video showed a scene as tense as it was tragic. Officers can be heard ordering Bemis to drop the weapon, their voices steady but urgent. Bemis, instead of complying, pounded his chest with one hand and waved the knife wildly with the other, shouting, "You're not taking me alive." He advanced toward the officers, ignoring repeated warnings. One officer even tried using a taser, but it failed to subdue him. The final seconds. As Bemis closed the distance, officers were forced to act. A volley of gunfire rang out, and within seconds, Bemis collapsed onto the pavement. Neighbors later told investigators they heard at least 6 shots in rapid succession. The officers immediately secured the knife, called for EMS, and began life-saving measures, but Bemis was pronounced dead at the scene. The killing stunned the small town. While many admitted Bemis had been a ticking time bomb, others questioned whether more could have been done to get him treatment before it came to this point. One local resident summed up the mood. "We knew Mark had demons. The question is, did the system fail him or did he choose this ending himself?"
He's still there?
Next, we'll break down the evidence and official investigation, including the DA's ruling on whether the officers were justified, and the chilling details uncovered afterward about Bemis's last days. The investigation and evidence. The DA's review. The Northwestern District Attorney's Office immediately launched a standard officer-involved shooting investigation. Every frame of the body cam footage, every spent shell casing, every statement from neighbors and officers was meticulously reviewed. Within weeks, DA David Sullivan's office announced its findings. The use of deadly force was legally justified. Officers had exhausted all other options, including de-escalation and a failed taser attempt. Bemis's advance with a knife posed an immediate and life-threatening danger. Toxicology and autopsy. The autopsy revealed 2 disturbing truths. 1. Bemis had a high blood alcohol concentration at the time of death, mixed with traces of methamphetamine.
Don't touch the gun.
2. He had been shot multiple times in the torso and shoulder, with the fatal wound piercing his heart. Investigators concluded his intoxication not only fueled his aggression but also likely made him less responsive to the taser. Evidence from the scene. The knife Bemis brandished was a 9-inch kitchen blade, later bagged as evidence. Broken glass inside the duplex suggested a violent domestic dispute had erupted before police arrived. A neighbor's Ring camera captured audio of Bemis yelling threats minutes before police pulled up, further corroborating officers' accounts. The final puzzle piece. Investigators also uncovered handwritten notes in Bemis's home. On a crumpled sheet of paper, he had scrawled phrases like, "No way out. They want to lock me up again. Better to go out my way." These notes painted a haunting picture that Bemis might have intended suicide by cop all along. In the final part, we'll explore the fallout after Bemis's death, the community's divided reaction, how his family responded, and what this case reveals about the growing crisis of mental health and repeat offenders in small towns. The fallout and legacy. News of Bemis's death spread quickly through Greenfield. Some residents felt relief, saying police had likely prevented a future tragedy, given his long history of violence and arrests. Others, however, saw it as a failure of the system, a man with a known record of mental instability and addiction who never received lasting treatment. At vigils, a few held signs reading "Justice for Mark," while others quietly asked, "What about justice for his victims?" The community was split between grief, frustration, and a bitter sense of inevitability. The family's response. Bemis's family released a short statement, torn between acknowledging his demons and mourning the way his life ended. Mark was deeply troubled, but he was also loved. We hoped he could change. We never wanted it to end like this. His sister, in interviews, blamed the lack of consistent rehabilitation programs. He was in and out of jail, but never truly helped. The system just kept recycling him until it killed him. Broader questions. The case raised larger debates in Massachusetts. Repeat offenders: how many times should someone cycle through the system before society intervenes differently? Mental health and addiction: was Bemis's death preventable with earlier treatment, or was violence inevitable? Policing and force: while the DA cleared the officers, the bodycam footage forced many to reckon with the split-second decisions officers face in volatile situations. Legacy of the case. Ultimately, Bemis's death became more than just a headline. It was a cautionary tale of a man whose violent past caught up with him, of a community wrestling with trauma, and of a justice system straining under the weight of untreated addiction and mental illness. For many in Greenfield, the image of Bemis advancing with a knife, ignoring repeated pleas to stop, remains etched as both a tragedy and a warning.